We're going to give you the definition of purpose that you've probably never heard. A lot of people ask, what's my purpose? And that question is actually kind of the wrong question, and it will lead you to the wrong answer. But we're about to tell you what your purpose actually is and how to find it in the next 15 minutes,
Yeah.
which sounds lofty, but I think we're going to be able to achieve it. And if you're new to the show, all the problems that you're currently facing in your life are in one of 5 categories: either money, relationships, health, faith, or purpose. You may be rich in one of these 5 areas, meaning you have an abundance of in one of the 5 areas, but you'll never be wealthy until you're rich in all 5. A question to sum this up is, what's the point of money if you don't have your health to enjoy it or anyone to enjoy it with? And what's the point of anything if you ultimately have no purpose after you die? Well, you're in the right place if you desire to live a fulfilling, purposeful life and go from rich to wealthy. Rich designed a coaching method that he successfully uses to coach millionaires, actors, athletes, doctors, lawyers, financial advisors, and high achievers, and anyone that wants to go from rich to wealthy. And I'm one of his clients, and I own and run businesses that generate multi-7 figures per year and employ about 18 people to date and counting. And we created this podcast, to bring this coaching method that is changing people's lives, taking them from rich to wealthy, to bring it to you so that you can join us every week. So every time you watch an episode, you're getting a coaching session for free. So let's go from rich to wealthy and talk about purpose.
Yeah.
What is purpose?
Yeah. So many people try to find out what their purpose is in life, like it's this thing way up here and somehow I'm going to find out now. This is why I'm on planet
Finally,
Earth.
I know what my purpose is.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, it is so much simpler than that.
Yeah.
It's basically really what it's all about is, what am I doing on purpose? Because what you do on purpose will determine your purpose.
Wow.
And really, if you back into it, just look at what you're doing, what your intentions are, and what you're doing on a daily basis that's purposeful, and that oftentimes will determine your purpose. Now, the cool thing about that is if you don't like the direction of your life, if you don't like what's happening in your life, if you want to change the direction of your life, change what you're doing on purpose. Example, right? If the purpose of your life is to be a healthy person, then look at your habits and what are you doing on purpose on a daily basis, because that's going to determine if you really are on purpose in the area of health and fitness. And we could go all the way through that, but that's the simplest definition. I know we can talk about that and break that down further.
We may be writing a new book. Not 100% sure. We are writing a new book, and
Yeah.
I actually think
we're 100% sure.
Yeah, we are. I want to read to you. This is probably the best definition I've ever heard of purpose, and I think it's going to change your life. It's going to change your life. What is purpose anyway? I'm reading this directly from chapter 1 of the book. What is purpose anyway? Purpose simply means that you're living for what you intend to live for. Like Rich just said, you're living on purpose. So you're living for what you intend to live for. You're living on purpose. When people are living off purpose, they are simply living without intention, meaning that life is just happening to them, and whatever happens, happens. We know wherever there's a lack of intention, chaos is the only other option. In fact, if you remember back to science class, the physics principle of entropy states that anything left to itself will move more and more towards disorder over time. What does physics have to do with me? Well, since you're a physical being in a physical world, everything. And if you do not live on purpose with intention, your life will move more and more towards disorder over time. That's why gaining weight really requires no intention at all, while staying in shape does require intention. And the reason why you desire not to gain weight, but instead to stay in shape, is because you were designed to live intentionally, or in other words, on purpose.
Right. And to help our clients, to help you, the people that we coach regularly, kind of get to that core value of what I'm going to be intentional about, we want you to identify your non-negotiable values. So if you can determine what your non-negotiable values are, then you can begin to live on purpose, because you can live intentionally on purpose. So, you know, in the book, that first chapter, we're defining purpose as living on purpose, meaning if you don't, you said it well, if you don't live on purpose, then everyone else's agenda, priority, schedule, and what their purpose is can actually interfere with you living on purpose.
You're going to end up living on their purpose instead of on your purpose.
Yeah.
You're living on someone's purpose.
Exactly. Exactly. And we don't want you to live by accident.
No.
And we don't want you to live by someone else's purpose. We want you to live on purpose. And it's really liberating too, because what you begin to do is you notice that what you've done throughout the day was very purposeful.
Yep.
Instead of getting to the end of the day, have you ever, I'm sure, let's just ask this question.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask our camera people, I'm going to ask everybody watching. Have you ever got to the end of the day and said, what did I accomplish today?
Yes.
And
Yep. And even though I had accomplished some things,
yeah.
like you can go back and make a list. You're like, I
Yeah.
did some things, but it wasn't what I intended to do.
So what you felt like, even though you checked a lot of things off the box, you did not feel like you lived on purpose.
Yeah, and I feel like ultimately I feel like I didn't accomplish anything. And it's not that I didn't accomplish anything. It's that I didn't accomplish anything I wanted to accomplish, which means I wasn't in my purpose.
And you weren't intentional.
True.
About the things that really matter to you,
Yep.
so you can live out of purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. And I've talked to a lot of people. Let's talk about what society kind of defines purpose as. It's like this. I think people think of purpose, not the definition we just gave, but the definition that the world has given people is purpose is like, my purpose is to be a doctor.
Yeah.
My purpose is to be a fireman. My purpose
Yeah.
is to be a lawyer. My purpose is to be a basketball player,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Why is that not
Yeah.
the right thing to be asking, or the right way to talk about purpose?
Yeah. Well, and what we do is something that's important.
Right.
Okay. And we were talking about this before the show. What I love about our show is you're going to be hard pressed to find a podcast that represents the generations that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Joey's in his 20s. I'm in my late 60s. And we have a good cross representation of that. So in my generation, growing up, when I was a kid, my parents always talked about, he is a doctor. So Mr. Jones is a doctor. Mr. Smith is a butcher.
Mm-hmm.
You think about that for a moment. What they were saying is that person's purpose is what they do. But do you really know Mr. Smith? Or do you really know Mr. Jones? Or do you just know that he's your butcher and he's your doctor? So there is a shift in your generation to say, I don't want to be defined simply by what I do. I want to be defined by who I am. There's a deeper purpose, right? There's a deeper purpose to who I am. I believe in these values. I believe in a world that should look like this. And so purpose then becomes greater than just what we do in our careers.
Yep. And I think to sum up everything you just said, is the way I'm understanding it is like, purpose is not singular like people thought. It's plural and it's infinite. It's not singular. If you're a butcher, your purpose is not to be a butcher, but if you're a butcher, and you intended to be a butcher, then you're living on purpose in that area of your life. But what else have you intended to do? Because you might also be a father,
Yeah.
but you're not just a father.
Right.
That's just part of what you intended to be.
Right.
But maybe you're doing something you didn't intend to do. Maybe you're working in a job that you didn't intend to work at, and you're sitting there like, so you might be say you're a lawyer and you didn't want to actually be a lawyer. Society told you should be a lawyer. So you're not actually living intentionally. You're not living on your purpose. You're living on somebody else's purpose. So now your whole life feels like you're not accomplishing anything because you're doing something that you never intended to do. So really, purpose as defined here is simply living for what you intend to live for. But a major problem is most people don't know what they actually intend to live for.
Yeah.
They're living for what other people told them they should intend to live for. Some people, by coincidence, find it on accident. Some people find it intentionally.
Yeah.
And you are the type of person who needs to find it intentionally sooner rather than later. So how can somebody find what they intend to live for, their purpose?
Yeah, great question. Let me give you a little old school wisdom.
All right,
All right?
let's do it.
So we talked about the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? My era. I'll never forget one time my mom came home from the grocery store and she said this. And we knew the butcher. He lived in our neighborhood and he was a personal friend of my family's. And she said, Mr. Smith, the butcher, every time I come away from that store, I feel better about myself. There's something about his joy and his personality that makes me feel better. Now, why do I say that? Is because, think of that for a moment. She didn't come back and say, I marvel at his butcher skills. She said, I marvel at the purpose in which he lives his life. So no matter what you do, you can still have a higher purpose to bring meaning and to, like what you said, to move us out of chaos and into something more community, into more collective with our purpose. So I think purpose is not just about what we do, it's about really discovering who we want to be.
Yep.
And when we discover who we want to be, then we can intentionally live that out every day, no matter what we're going through. Or, we may transition from job to job, but have I made a determination that my purpose in life is to make other people feel better today, or make one person smile today, or make one person feel good about themselves today? Or my purpose is to change my community and to get us to walk in unity or get us to walk in community. So I think purpose is something that you embrace on a deeper level besides just the definition of our job.
Yep.
Or the definition of where we live or where we grew up or the color of our skin or our ethnicity or our religion or our background. It's who we are.
Yep. And you really have to, for yourself, a practical way to figure out what your purpose is to simply get out a piece of paper and a pen and write down things that you desire to do in your life, and then write down also why. Because if you just write down, I desire to drive a Lamborghini, I desire to live in a giant house, I desire to do this, that, and the other thing, that is somebody else's purpose that was very well advertised to you by the companies who make those things, who are going to make a lot of money when you buy those things. I'm not saying they're bad, but do you really want those things? So first, write a list down of what you want, then write a list down of why, then cross-reference those lists and say, well, maybe I really don't want that. Maybe I really don't want that. Really. And then you're going to find your list is like, I really desire to be a parent. I really desire to have a great relationship. I really desire to have money to be able to take my family on vacations. You're going to find your list and see like, those are the things I really desire. And I also know why I desire them.
Yeah.
Then you need to build your life around those things and say, how much time, money, energy, is being allotted
Yeah.
towards those things. And then you can actually do a mathematical calculation of what percentage of your life is off purpose and what percentage of your life is on purpose. And you can start making the shift to living on purpose.
That's great. Really good practical steps for people to follow. And this is what I would add to what you said, Joey, because that is so really, really right on. Make that list. Get practical with that. And then what I have my clients do as well on top of that is do the 3 3s. And the 3 3s are this. Number one, how do I want to show up? What are 3 words that describe how I want to show up every day?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, write down 3 words that describe how I want to interact with the people that I show up with. So when I walk in a room, when I walk in to do this podcast, how do I want to interact with Peyton? How do I interact with David? How do I want to interact with Joey? That's predetermining how I'm going to show up and then how I'm going to interact. And the third thing is 3 words that describe what are success markers for me.
Mm-hmm.
What things mean success for me. So, I think what we're doing is we're helping people with an understanding of purpose and then giving them some takeaways, some assignments on how to
100%.
work through that.
Yep. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, we are releasing episodes every single week. We highly encourage you to keep getting coached so you can keep living towards your purpose. We thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Rich to Wealthy, and we'll see you on the next one.